Okay, welcome. We're going to reconvene the open session and call to order at 6:01. Actions taken out of closed session. The board, by a unanimous vote, approved the retirement agreement with a classified employee. Attendance roll call. Clerk Epperson. Trustee Lopez?
Here.
Trustee Reed? Here. Trustee Galindo?
Here.
President Mansfield here. And student representative? Will you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Approve and adopt the agenda. We do have an addition, correct?
I move that we amend the agenda to add item 13.8, correspondence for signature.
All in favor? Aye. Item 9, district mission statement. We're a collaborative, culturally rich educational community where a rigorous and innovative curriculum prepares our students to be successful contributors to our global society. Item 10.0, organizational meeting, Board of Trustees. First thing is 10.1, election of board officers, administer the oath. We don't have to do that. Okay. Is it not on? Okay. Is it me or the mic?
It's you.
Oh, ow. Okay.
Know what I'm saying.
All right. Consider nominations and appoint the governing board president for 2018. Looking for motions.
So I move that we stay the course with Jeff as president of the meeting of this era for positions and such. I move that we nominate Jeff on as president.
Well, thank you for that vote of confidence. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. 10.3, consider nomination and appoint governing board clerk for 2018. Looking for a motion.
Likewise, I move that Julie continue her role as
All right. You got a second? Second, all in favor? All right. Looks like we just keep our seats. Yeah. So when you guys are talking, you need to turn your mic on.
We are.
We're done talking. All right. Okay, we'll get it down. We'll get it down. Your mic on? Just keep your mic on. That way you can just... There we go. Okay, we're good to go now. All right. Moving on. Oh, this is the fun stuff. Recognition. Item 11. The Board of Education recognizes students, employees, or members of the community who have received recognition for academic or athletic achievement or have made significant contributions of any kind to the district. The following individuals would be recognized. And this is a real important one. Will Jesus come up here, please? Who is graduating Palisades High School. And moving on, will members of the Yosemite Volunteers meet me up at the podium, please? Does somebody volunteers? Oh, yeah. Everybody.
Today?
Huh?
Yeah,
No,
it just-
Don't get paid for that. Is that the two of you, Paul? Is that it?
Is that it?
Any more? Oh, sorry. Right, Bennett? Let go of it. Okay. So
Yeah.
we're hoping for everybody else.
And just to give a plug here, first of all, I'm really thrilled to be able to honor community members who have dedicated their time to the school. Oh, don't sneak away, I gotta sing your praises here. When we say in theory, we have this trip every year, we go to Yosemite, and we need volunteers, we need chaperones, and you know, Yosemite is probably one of the most beautiful places that you're going to ever see. However, when you become a chaperone, when you make that commitment as a chaperone, you are committing to working with a group of students. You are committing to being up at 6 a.m. every morning and hitting the hay at 10 o'clock every night. You are committing to working through with your group that you're with. You're in a group of about 6 students. And you also commit to hike about 8 to 12 miles a day, depending on what the day's activities are. So our Yosemite volunteers really do go above and beyond. And so I really want to thank them for making that commitment. By the way, the trip is 5 days. It's also a time commitment as well. So I really want to thank them for working with our 6th grade students. As you will see later in the video, fun was had by all. I know our teachers appreciate their efforts as well. And if we don't have those chaperones, it makes the trip really hard to do. So thank you.
Now, I do have to say that I did Yosemite twice with both my girls, and it's a lot of work, so I understand completely how time-consuming and how important it is. Of course, I think I had more fun than the girls. That's true right there. But it's time. It's 5 days, you miss work, but it is totally worth it. So again, appreciate your help, guys. Jenna, and then I think Monique and I have some stuff.
So 5 of our 7 bond oversight committee members are actually complete, can you hear me? Is that what I already are actually finishing their final term, so I'm going to put them on the spot and ask them to come up here. Lisa Skinner, you can come up, who functioned as our president. Rose Beck, who's our VP. Wendy Lopez, if you guys can come up here, sorry. Oh, I'm going to really put you on the spot. Sorry. No. Wendy Lopez, Herb Salinger, Donna Dill, who was not able to attend, I believe. And then we have one continuing member president, Julie Garcia. You can come up as well. So just for some background, these members have dedicated the last 6 years to participate on our bond oversight committee, which, as everyone knows, takes a lot of time and commitment. The last 2.5 years, I've had the pleasure of working with them, and they've functioned as a very cohesive and effective unit, which I've greatly appreciated. The district has greatly appreciated. So you will certainly be missed, but the district appreciates all the time and dedication that you have given and all the projects that you have seen through. And Julie, we're very grateful that you're willing to dedicate another 2 years. It will be very beneficial to have some seasoned veterans on the group that can provide some guidance to our new members. So thank you very much on behalf of the district for everything, and you will be missed.
Always making me take all these pictures. On the back. Oh. As it was pointed out to me by our superintendent, that you guys don't have to stay for all the business. If you're feeling that there's other things taking you away, please feel free. Rose has got her coat on all ready to go. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming. We do appreciate all your hard work. Thank you, everybody. That's funny. All right, we'll let the crowd clear for a second. All right, moving on. Public comments, item 12. Public business from the floor, non-agendized items. This portion of the agenda allows an individual the opportunity to address the board on any item regarding board business that is not on the agenda. Without taking action or entering into a dialogue with the public, board members may briefly respond to statements made or ask clarifying questions about topics posed by the public. Your matter may be referred to administration. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. Were there any white cards? Huh? What's that? Oh, okay.
So I started.
No, we're going to do it.
Means that they can't hear me. So Bessie, thank you so much for coming tonight. We wanted to honor your work that you did for Yosemite and how much help and assistance and support you gave our kids.
Appreciate your service. It's a labor of love. All right.
Thank you. Sorry to jump in.
No, that's important stuff. All right, any comments from the public? Nope, seeing none. Moving on to item 13, reports, correspondence, discussion items. 13.1, career technical education and next generation science standard presentation. The teachers, Heather Brooks, Maggie Swarner, and Eric Perry. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
It comes out of there too.
Okay. So we're going to start off here. Our first presentation is the CTE Pathway and Plan. My name is Maggie Swarner. Eric Perry, construction. I'm biology, biotech. You're in charge of that. And this is Heather Brooks, our alternative energy, chemistry, and physics pathway. Before we really get going, we want to let you know that this is all online. Paula has a copy of it and can share or email it to you. There are links. So some things we're going to go a little faster through, but just know that there's lots of research, there's lots of documentation on the slideshow for you, okay? Okay, so to start out, we aren't sure how many of you are familiar with CTE, Career Tech Education. There is a lot of different industry sectors.
So we don't offer all these, but we are going to talk today about the energy sector, which I teach, and the construction section, which Eric teaches, and then Maggie teaches the biotech, which is part of health sciences. This history of CTE, one of the reasons that we wanted to bring this forward to you is that Calistoga does not have a CTE plan or pathway set up yet. Even though we teach these vocational skill classes, we've never officially adopted any sort of CTE local plan. So as we started getting into our grants and our applications that we've been writing, we realized, hey, we need to actually do the CTE plan for our district so that we can get these funds. So CTE actually has a lot of requirements in order to pass and get that CTE credit. One of the first questions is why CTE? And as you can see, this is taken from Santa Rosa JC, but there is a lot of colleges out there that do CTE pathway plans, certificates, associate's degrees, and especially feeding schools for us. You don't always have to have a 4-year degree to make a lot of money, and we have a lot of students that aren't interested in that route, and so we are trying to give them the best opportunities out there for all the options for their future. So CTE is going to allow those students to investigate both pathways, so they can have the certificate or the vocational skills that they need to get those high-paying jobs. As you can see, there's, let me see, 19 million university graduates and 7 million career-requiring BA/BS for one of the key points. So obviously, not all of the 4-year college degree holders will have jobs out there available to them. Yet, there is a lot of CTE jobs. So 53% are just CTE skills, and they pay sometimes better than the 4-year pathway plans. So we're giving the students these opportunities, okay? And as Maggie said, I want to try to go through this as quick as possible, so if you have anything you want to look at later, because we've also done some comments and notes underneath in the section, so we forwarded to Paula and she should be able to share with you.
Okay, so we did a little research on CTE pathways in our area. So the first slide we have are Napa County schools. All of these schools have well-established CTE pathways. And again, CTE is 2-year and 4-year, so it really sets up the kids for success, either straight in career or to college success. So we're appealing to both groups of students. These are all similar schools within Sonoma County, and then we found a little bit in Middletown, not an established pathway, but again, a CTE course. We are proposing 3 pathways, three pathways. For this one, our industry sectors, again, health, medical sciences, construction, and alternative energy, fall within the top 100 highest industry job growth in California, and they fall within the top 30 projected job growth for the next 10 years. So it really behooves us to push these because kids are going to find jobs in these in the next 10 years.
Okay. Because we're small schools, one of the really valuable things for us is to look at how are we best educating all of our students. And we've done a really good job, I think, of investigating how to make this work for all of our students, not just for a vocational school student or a technical education student, but we want to say, we're going to take this beyond, and we know some of you want to go to college. So for example, for me, I do the energy pathway. I want to make sure that students are aware that I'm not just teaching so they can go be a lineman and climb a pole, right? Not everybody wants to do that, scared of heights, although it makes a lot of money. Or maybe they don't want to do the electrical power systems pathway program. That also makes a lot of money, but that's, again, maybe not for everybody. They want to go to 4-year college. So for my sector, I promote and help the students look at engineering or any sort of chemistry, physics topics, material science degrees. We make sure the students are aware that they have options in these pathways and it's not just a technical education. Okay? So we wanted to show you all that That's one of the first things people say, oh, it's just CTE, well then what happens to everybody else? So we've done some research and put these are just some of the opportunities that the students have for their pathways for their future. So we've got them all separated out for you guys to look at later if you want more time. And then this is our
local plan. So part of our requirements for the Perkins and CTIG funding that we receive is that we come up with a local plan. It hasn't been established at Calistoga yet, and this is our proposal. We've been working on it for actually a couple of years now. We started with Mr. Grove, and then Mr. Perry is now in our plan. So for the health medical science, the biotech pathway, our level 1 for freshmen and sophomores is biotech 1, then we moved to biotech 2. And we don't have a capstone yet. If the need arises, we would establish a capstone. It's the same or a similar pathway with our energy and industry pathway. We have physics as the sophomore class, chemistry of all energy as the junior class, and then a capstone as needed. That's why it says NA, it's not established yet. And then Mr. Perry's pathway is building and construction. He starts off with freshmen in the intro to wood, sophomores, juniors in cabinet making, and then their capstone class is the tiny house project. Questions so far? Okay. Next one.
So this is one plan that we do need board approval on. One thing we need, so do you have any?
Well, so in order to get, I mean, we have to go through this process. I mean, we have some of the CTE classes the kids are taking, but we got to go through this process and have kind of like a format, a program to get the funding to make this work.
Correct. CTE, and that's what we're going to go through here in a little bit, is they have very developed, strict rules and regulations.
So when you showed the other schools, St. Helena, Middletown, some of those others, so they developed something like this for each one of their programs?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're very developed. I come from Napa County, and they had a very, very developed plan that's been around a long time, so. Yeah,
So we just kind of piggyback on what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
As far as the requirements.
Exactly. Yeah, so Napa County comes down and supports us all the time.
Right.
We work with Gilly, and she comes down and helps us with this. So she's helping us make sure that we're fulfilling all the requirements that we need.
In compliance, basically.
Exactly.
So in order to be eligible for those 2 grants, Perkins and CTIG, these are all part of our CTIG pathway.
So what's the time frame on this Apollo for?
We would like a board approval for the local plan, and then we have one other for our advisors that we need as soon as possible, but we don't really know, what your time frame is for approving those things. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah, so, this looks great. So we put it on the next agenda and then we,
Vote on it.
and off we go.
Mr. President, I'd like to see that if possible.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
one more.
Oh, yeah, no, we'll make it happen.
Okay,
So,
excellent.
anything else you want to add? You done? No?
Not yet.
Okay, no, please.
We'll try to go quicker.
No, it's okay.
I'm sorry. And so one of your questions is, what do we have to have? And so in order to be CTE teachers and CTE compliant, we have to have our credentials. So we've gone that extra step to get, I have my CTE energy credential, and Maggie has her biotech CTE credential. So we have to have those in order to teach the classes and get the funds.
Okay.
So if we don't have that, we don't get the money. And these are just some examples of some of the grants that we have gotten for having these programs in place. We have the CTIG, as Maggie said, and the breakdown, first year, $125,620. Second year, we got $68,719. And then we just applied for the third year. It's a lot of money in CTE. That's another reason we want to go that route.
Well, take advantage of it.
And then Perkins funding, biotech is $15,000, alternative energy $9,300, and construction was $13,000 this year. Just this year.
CTE credentialing doesn't have to be certified teacher, or can credentialing for people who are in
Yes, you can go either route. So people that have had
just experience. You know, like auto shop is a common one, so they've been auto mechanics for a long time, but they don't have any sort of bachelor's degree to get the good credentialing. They can get a CTE credential, and then they just have to certify all the hours they've spent. So because we're teachers, we still have a certain amount. I had to prove that I worked with the energy industry for a certain amount of time constraints, and Maggie had to go through and prove all of her health and sciences in order to get the credential as well. So that we're still held to some of those standards.
So in the future, would you seek outside of the school district for sites, hospitality, different other things we could add on in the future?
Yes, you definitely could do that.
Yeah, for future pathways.
Yes.
I love this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I mean, you're a hospitality area, so yes, you can get people to come in that don't have full 4-year degrees as well. So that's another option you're opening up right there. And then,
So we just wanted to make sure that you were aware of Prop 51. Prop 51 was just passed in August of 2017, and it's a CTE facilities update for actual new buildings. And we would just like for you to consider in your next, year that we would like to be part of that funding. What it allows us is it allows us to apply, and each pathway can apply for $3 million, and that would be a matching fund. So we would need to look at some alternative, matching funds from the school district. So we just ask you to please put that in your back pocket and think about that, please.
so that's for building though, that's only for facilities. And as you can imagine, because we are opening up CTE and science at the same time, our rooms are getting really overcrowded. So that's something that we're bringing up and just letting you know that there's a lot of money available for that. Any questions on that one? Okay, this is the other one that we need approved. We have to have our advisory members approved by you. So I put a little red note just so I make sure I ask. So it's the local plan and this that we need on the agenda. And we already have a long list of people that we've worked with and that come in and help us all the time. So that one won't be that bad. Just looking over, and we've shared with Paula do you guys have that? I'm not sure if it was forwarded to you already. Okay, so we've got a list of all the people in the industry that we work with currently. Okay, and as you had asked earlier, we do need to fulfill the requirements of CTE. So this is the 11 elements of a high-quality CTE plan. And so you can take time to look at all those, but we do need an advisory panel. That's one of our main focuses, is that it has to get us up and running. And then just a lot of, taking the students out on field trips, getting them, to work with intern work or et cetera, but getting them out there. And then one thing we did want to ask from you was if you could help us. I know Maggie and I really need local Calistoga people to help with our pathway. I've asked a lot, but every single one of my advisors are coming in and driving from, Napa, Fairfield, Santa Rosa. So if you happen to know of anybody that would be interested in supporting these pathways and being on our advisory committee, it would be greatly appreciated if you could let us know those names and contacts. And here is just some of our students doing some of their leadership skills. That's one of the requirements for CTE. So we have the engineering club, and then we have the STEAM competition, and those funnel in straight from our classes and our CTE classes, and you just see them in action here. Some of our, again, part of the 11 elements of high quality CTE is doing our career.
Yeah, so we do a lot of career exploration. Last year we went to BioMarin to look at their pharmaceutical labs, and they're studying rare genetic diseases. We went to the Buck Institute on aging. We also went to Medtronic and the wastewater treatment. And throughout these, we're just really focusing on college and career again and again. So they're getting a chance to kind of try out things and see what they might be interested in, instead of trying it out at college and deciding that they aren't interested. So do it now. When we look at our 2- and 4-year pathways, again, we're trying to establish that, hey guys, here's an option for a 2-year and here's an option for a 4-year. So all 3 CTE pathway teachers are presenting college and career options at the 2 and the 4-year level.
Okay. Here's my field trips and my class options as well. I took the students last year to Langman College, which was amazing. I mean, right away after 4 months of going to this college, they can earn $100,000 a year. So a very well-paying job. They said 100% placement for going to this college. And then I took them also to an exciting other option for them, which is sort of an indoor electrical wireman, and that is over at San Mateo College. It's the only college in all the state of California that does this. And they tie directly with PG&E, but they also work with 14 other industry sectors, like Tesla. I mean, they have a really great program. And as well, same thing, you do an apprentice for a little bit, and then it's up to $100,000. So these are for students that this one is very cheap as well, so they can get through in about a couple $1,000s for their degree. And then if they're not interested in doing the technical school route and they want to do the 4-year degree, work with Antonio Castro from Napa Valley College, and he's going to come work with the students for STEM and Career Day to expose them to any sort of 2-year programs that they have for engineering. And then UC Irvine, I'm doing some virtual stuff with them. They have an advanced power and energy program there. And Cal Maritime will be one of our focused field trips as well. Very close engineering program. They also high demand. As soon as they graduate, there's people, scouting for them.
Construction.
This is a field trip that was sponsored by a lumber organization that we did last year, and we went to a lumber mill. We went to
Is that Cloverdale?
Yeah, it's Cloverdale. And then we went to a wholesale distribution center that makes architectural woodwork, and then we went to a retail company. And what was pretty cool is that was sponsored by the industry. So the industry, there's such a shortage of labor that they're finally starting to step up and kind of try to get more interest. This was another career expo that we went to in Fairfield, and the students got to walk through all sorts of different careers, and they got to do mock interviews, and some students were even getting job offers, so that's kind of cool. Yeah. And then higher education in the construction industry, we have apprenticeships, so students are super motivated. They can earn while they learn. There's also certificates of study at a lot of community colleges. And then there's also bachelor degrees in construction management at a few different colleges.
Okay, so Eric just reminded me that we do have articulation agreements too. Biotech is articulated with Solano for either their 2 or their 4-year bachelor's of science degree. And then we wanted to close the CTE pathways with any questions and an invitation to come visit our classes and check out what your students are doing in their CTE pathways. So are there any questions? Did you get the goat one? Was there a question?
How does this interface with general?
How does this interface with general education?
I would like to answer that one, please. So I made sure, I started my school class a long time ago when I taught at Vintage High School, and one of the things I did was poll the students and say, what would make you take this class? And right away they said it has to align with UC A to G approval because we're all going to college, so we need those things checked off for us, please. So I made sure that my classes are both getting UC D Lab credit for the sciences. So I'm not sure if we put that on the local plan that we put up there below, but it's going to come up here in the science portion a little bit. So I do the physics of alternative energy gets physics D Lab credit for UC A to G system, and it also gets CTE credit at the same time. And then the chemistry of alternative energy gets chemistry credit as well for UC A to G. So they're getting their chemistry and physics at the same time. Those are all taken care of through separate classes, but we do support with projects a lot of other content. They're always writing and doing a little bit of English with that, and then we have a lot of math that comes up that I'm constantly doing. Yes, lots of math. But the other classes are still going. Did I answer your question? Okay, I wasn't sure if I got that. Is there any other questions?
So what you need from us is to have this on next month's agenda. And off we
Yes.
go. Okay. And then we can visit you on the 7th, 5th
Correct.
period?
So it's next Thursday during our 5th grade block.
And so you guys know how to find Eric.
Yeah, you guys can visit it anytime.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, you should come by and see the tiny house.
Well, so, did we get any sales in the parade?
There's a few people. I know Craig got a business card from someone.
Oh, good.
We need to have like an open house.
Okay. Yeah, good for you.
We'll finally done.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, guys. Appreciate all your hard work. Thank you.
So we're going to stick around for just another few slides.
Yeah, okay.
Our next presentation is our proposal for our transition to NGSS, Next Generation Science Standards, for the high school only. So NGSS really is about thinking deeper, which is so much different than what we were doing before, with No Child Left Behind. So we're delving deep, we're solving problems, we're applying our math and our science toward real-world events and problems. This looks terrible, but our call with this is it's called Appendix K. It's part of NGSS. And the quote that's the most important is, all standards, all students. So in NGSS, we have 4 standards. We have earth science, we have biology, chemistry standards, and physics. And what NGSS demands is that all students are exposed to all standards. And that's what Appendix K really is about.
And so this is just rolled out to us by the state of California. As you know, they adopted the NGSS standards for science. And we are already in the field test portion, so we've got some information here for you on testing. Last year was pilot, this year is a field test, and then next year will be operational, and the year after will be operational as well. But the key focus is that they will now be tested on all 4 subjects, which if you really had the time, you would be teaching all 4 years of the biology, earth science, chemistry, and physics. So we don't have, that much luxury as a smaller school. So there's a lot of districts out there that are switching to just 3 and then putting the earth science in there. And that's one thing we're going to show you we've decided upon. And our district report card now will reflect science scores as well. So it's important that our students are doing well on these tests because it's going to be a part of our district report card. So what are other districts doing? We have North Bay, Nevada doing 3 years of science now. San Francisco is 2 years, but 3 years recommended. Napa, St. Helena is 3 years to graduate, and Napa County is 2 years, and I was telling Maggie they recommend 3 because I taught there for 11 years. So I know that they have that as well. And one of the reasons 3 years is recommended is because most students are on the AVID pathway to go to college, so it's already a part of their requirements. And so a little bit more information on more, right?
Yeah, so this is just more from Sonoma County and Lake County. Most schools are getting closer to adopting 3 years. One reason why some of the schools haven't gotten to 3 years yet is because we don't have curriculum for NGSS. We aren't finished with our pilot testing. Once all that has come in, we have curriculum and we have a solid test, then most districts will probably go to adopting a 3 or a 4-year model.
And one of the first questions is, well, how many of our students are already taking 3 years of science? As you can see, this graduating class has about 67% of our students already doing 3 years of science. And most of the ones that aren't are either our SPED kids or our ELL kids. One of the reasons I think, coming from Napa County is that they didn't have a lot of support. They don't have a lot of that ELL SPED support that we have going on here. So for us to run these classes, Ruth is in my class every day. That's, a miracle. When I came from Vintage, nobody ever came to my class. So I feel like for me at least, they're getting a second look at math and maybe a second look at how to write English a little better with science. Because as we said when we first started, science has a lot of different things wrapped up in it. So hopefully we're just supporting the kids a little bit better in not only their science, but also their math and maybe a little bit of their writing skills.
And I just want to stress on the point that NGSS really does want all students to hit those standards. So taking, that 3-year course, those 3 classes with earth science wrapped in would ensure that they'll have all standards for all students. Because you might have someone that hated biology but falls in love with chemistry, or really, really didn't like biology but loves physics. And if they're not put in that position where they need to take those classes, they might just skip out thinking, oh, I'm not a physics person.
I'm not science, I'm going to give up.
Exactly.
For example, we're a perfect example because I do not like biology at all.
And I tried in chemistry in college.
But that doesn't mean I shouldn't be in science.
Right.
So, some kids have that reaction just to the wrong class. And this is...
So there are many course proposals for how to make this happen in the NGSS models. They're really terrible to look at, but they recommend 3 domains, and on our next slide we have the domain that we would like to propose. So our proposal is that during the freshman year they take biology, during their sophomore year they take physics, and then their junior year they take chemistry. With all of those 3 years, you can see these highlights of blue, and it integrates the earth science component into it. So instead of having 4 years of science, we're proposing 3 with earth science wrapped into all 3 subjects, biology, chemistry, and physics. We are already doing a lot of NGSS. We are fully transitioned at the high school with our current plan and our projects and our curriculum. And this is some of our some of our students at the Tech Challenge, the STEAM Symposium, and many of our labs already include the science, technology, engineering, and math, and art also.
Yeah, I just put this one together. I just wanted to point out that there is a lot of math in my class, just for Kathy. So, but as you can see, I really am retouching on those math concepts over and over again. So I know that they're going to be taking an extra year if this goes, in that direction of 3 years from graduation. But also think about that concept that we're hitting those other subjects, we're helping them write lab reports, which is helping their English skills, and we're helping the math a little bit more in a different way. And then they're doing a little bit more leadership skills when they get out there and show off what they're doing. And there's a little bit of art. So I try as much as possible to throw art into every project that I do, so they have a little bit of that. And one more time, please come visit us. So as you can see from mine, when you visit my class, you'll be visiting both CTE and science at the same time.
Do you guys have any questions on the transition to NGSS?
Way to go. Appreciate your hard work.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
We're, so do we have to ask for that to be put on to the next
You
one?
just did it,
Okay.
and it will be.
Okay, and then just a reminder that we have the flyers for you for the CTE pathway. If you wanted to know a little bit more about what we do, when there's more of them, anybody in the audience, the right by the door.
Thank you, and I think that goes back over to,
Oh,
I'll pass that over.
sorry.
Still for
I'll
Nicole.
actually use a photo.
Oh. Well, it was Nicole's.
Oh, fine.
That's okay. Thank you again. All right, moving on, we're going to 13.2 and Calistoga Promise presentation. Ms. Carla Serber.
Do I have a live mic?
You do.
All right. Well, that, I think, that presentation speaks to what I first wanted to say, which is that our district is so forward-thinking, and we work so hard to ensure that we create these opportunities for our students. And we've all heard the persistence rates, and we see the kid in the roastery who was going to college and now isn't. So the promise is about focusing on those barriers that are presenting that persistence. And we're not the only district looking at that. That's happening all over the country. And so all over the country, folks are asking themselves, what if we could engage the entire community in a movement to ensure all students have the expectations, resources, and skills to complete post-secondary education and be successful in the career of their choice? And just for folks who may be here who don't know what the Promise program is, it's a scholarship program that funds students in whatever their post-secondary choices are. Multiple ways to do that. Kalamazoo Promise was the first one, and they pay the students full tuition for a full 4 years. So we know what some of the post-secondary challenges are. Students prepared for 4 years go off to college, our local scholarship program, and then the Rotary has even started funding more than 1 year. So they leave here and their financial aid gap is filled, and they do okay for that first year or second year. But a lot of them face this insurmountable financial aid gap. Community college students, however, who go to a community college with the intent to transfer to a 4-year are not succeeding in the California community colleges in a timely manner. In fact, it's expected that a student who takes that path will end up spending $38,000 more for that bachelor's degree in the long run, because it will take them 7 years to earn that degree instead of 4. So that transfer path is a good one, and folks are getting a quality education at the community college, but there are systemic roadblocks that are preventing that from happening. This comes from the Campaign for College Opportunity, and when you visit with folks from the community colleges, they'll tell you the same thing. It's something that's on their radar, they're working on it, they've been working on it for years. How do we get kids through that pipeline faster? This is the current financial aid gaps for students attending the various universities. So for example, Sonoma State University, a student attending there in 2018 is going to face a almost $15,000 financial aid gap after their grants and scholarships. I get this information, every university is required to have a net price calculator on their website, and you can go in there and put in some variables. I created a family of 4, 1 student in college living on campus, except for the community college student, with a $50,000 a year family income. To attend UC Irvine, the student has a nearly $12,000 financial aid gap. The UCs are now less expensive for students whose families make less than $80,000 a year. So that accounts for the difference in price here, and that's because they're not paying tuition and fees to attend the UCs if the family income is below $80,000. Then that brings up the college, the A through G preparation. Students have to complete those courses to enter into the 4-year universities. But we're always reflecting on, are we giving them a rigorous enough experience so that they'll be successful in those universities? California community colleges, you may have all heard, are now free for the first year. So it's a repackaging of the Board of Governors fee waiver, which there was an income requirement, and if you met that requirement, you didn't pay tuition or fees. That is now available to all new students to community colleges for their first year. And I'm not sure how or if that's going to impact the estimated grant aid. So my numbers here are not as solid as these numbers here. This is what that looks like for our last 2 graduating classes of students. So we have here what they did, where they were going, and what their financial aid, what their gap would be. So for the class of 2016, we graduated students with a $271,000 financial aid gap. And for the class of 2017, it was $187,000. So we know we're sending these students off to college and they're going to have these kinds of financial aid or net prices that aren't covered by their financial aid. The board was generous enough to approve sending me to the Promise Net Conference in Kalamazoo, Michigan, where it all started in 2005, back in November. And Trustee Galindo and Viddy Agapoff joined me, and we divided and conquered. So we were able to participate in multiple workshops that taught us how to build a Promise program. And one of the best things about it was meeting all these folks who are in various stages of creating Promise programs, and more than willing to share, don't do it this way, do it this way, you gotta make sure you got this. So what we've learned about Promise programs is that they are place-based and that they support college-going and post-secondary cultures in our schools, that we want to get in there at the elementary school and start making these plans. They create stronger communities. They provide financial and non-financial support, and they are tailored to the needs of the specific community they serve. So while we met lots of generous folks, there wasn't anybody who could just hand us the plan, right? Because it needs to be for Calistoga. Significant takeaways, vision and policy, commitments must be made and reinforced throughout the pipeline. College savings accounts are huge in the Promise community, and they provide that a starting place and then the Promise funding at the end. And I have we met some folks from California. Was it West Sac, I think, where the city is actually running their CSAs for the families. And that is the way that they're sheltering their undocumented families so that they don't have to interact with a traditional financial institution. So we thought that was pretty ingenious and cool. Students, the folks with the Promise programs, and folks started Promise programs and weren't providing all the wraparound supports. And what they found was they were sending kids away to school, but they weren't persisting. So that pre-K through 12 pipeline, reinforcing it, creating smooth transitions for students and families is essential. And cross-sector partnerships are also essential. Branding and marketing. So we've got to be able to reach out to not just the students and their families, but the communities and the business community and the cities and the municipalities and all of those agencies. Frequent and thorough career exploration as early as kindergarten. I am working with seniors now who are applying to colleges who don't know what they want to do. Not that that's a bad thing, but it opens my eyes to the importance of these CTE classes that we have to give students opportunities to double down my efforts on the internship program that we're running through the College and Career Center. Funding's got to be sustainable. It's a sad story when a Promise program runs out of money. And the outcomes, of course, have to be measurable. We need data to show that what we're doing is working, or that it's not working, so that we can know what we should be doing instead. And the support has got to carry over into the post-secondary experience. Tennessee Promise, every student in the state of Tennessee gets their first 2 years of college paid for, and that's after federal aid. They have a manual that they've shared with us that is for mentors. So all of their mentors are just folks in the community, volunteers, and they have a timeline. How often do you check in with your mentee? What do you go over this week? And they've had great success with that. But the students just need that additional support throughout the process. So we find ourselves at this critical juncture. What are our organizational possibilities? Do we form a new nonprofit? Or do we partner with an existing nonprofit? And this is what we heard from folks in Kalamazoo, all these different ways of structuring this. Or do we run through existing mechanisms in the district? We met a woman from, I'm going to say it wrong, El Dorado. They say El Dorado in Arkansas. That was so hard. El Dorado. And she's the Promise Executive Director, and her office is on the high school campus in the College and Career Center. One of the smaller Promise programs that we learned about. And they're running a lot of stuff through their school district. So, Calistoga Joint Unified School District is already working to improve student access to rigorous classes, already supporting CTE programs that help students achieve their potential, dream big and reach high. You're already funding a College and Career Center that's providing multiple supports to help students choose post-secondary education and do their financial aid and apply. You're already maintaining partnerships with key cross-sector partners. And you have an existing mechanism, or the district has existing mechanisms for a scholarship fund. For example, there is a trust in the ASB that is holding scholarship funds now. And Maria Julia and I reread the FICMAT, the ASB manual, and it makes really clear that you can run scholarships through an ASB. We're not talking about putting children in charge of deciding who the scholarships go to, but obviously they would need to participate. And the really beautiful thing about a promise is, in terms of eligibility, every child who graduates is eligible. So ASB is looking for that equity piece. Is this being made accessible to everyone equitably? So our next steps are to establish a steering committee and determine and create the organizational structure. We need to formalize some partnerships. The internships are key. We started a partnership with the city last year. I'm meeting on Thursday with some representatives from the retail community who would like to launch an internship with all of our retailers. We need to define clear eligibility requirements. And those aren't about GPA. They're not about where you're going. They're about graduating and having committed to the promise often as early as 4th grade, and supporting them in that post-secondary. Secure funding, engaging the families, the community, and formally launching the program. We do have a website, calistogapromise.org, and these are folks who signed on as champions of the Calistoga Promise, and we're very grateful for their enthusiasm and interest. And if your name's not up there, calistogapromise.org. Not asking anyone to go into their pocket, just to sign on and say, this is a great idea. This is what we should be doing. Questions?
So in your travels back to Kalamazoo, did you find any comparable communities that are like ours that this is being?
Not any communities quite as small, and not any communities with the financial base that we have. So for example, the El Dorado, Arkansas, their endowment comes from Murphy Oil. So the community itself is not able to fund the promise, but they have an endowment. Richmond Promise is funded by Chevron. So Chevron had to put some money into the local community, and the deal was struck. That promise was created by their city council, because they had a city council member who said, okay, we'll do this, we'll play ball with Chevron, but you're going to give us 30 million for our promise program. Yeah. So no, we have not been able to find anybody who's 5,000 residents and has the same economic demographic as us. But I feel confident that we're able to pull bits and pieces from multiple.
I just,
I don't know if my things
There you
are.
go.
Oh, thanks. I just want to say something that we just got back from CSBA.
Yes.
So there's common threads between what CTE is doing, what the Promise is doing, what Grad Night asks for, what ASB asks for, what the boosters ask for. And one of the things that they talked about in one of the sessions that I'd love to come share with all you guys is that you have to be very, very careful about how you outreach to such a small community so that you don't make them feel that we're always going out and asking. There's ways that you can PR the program and you can PR CT in a way that you show that it's a win-win for the community. If we are populating it with educated, mindful children. There's a whole other thing I went to that I will share with Paula and you later about some different job things also. But so I see that definitely with the Promise and everything else, there's a need to have maybe just a committee that runs through all of them to make sure that when you're going out to the community, it's done in a mindful way so that they don't get tapped out. Basically.
Absolutely. Yeah, great suggestion.
That runs along with my question about sustainability. Do you have any ideas what other communities do to make this program sustainable? without, just promising too much and not doing it.
Right. A lot of the Promise programs that we've met with are still pretty new. So sustainability it's a big question mark. And I think one of the ways you prepare to be sustainable is that you're wise about how much you're giving and make sure that you're not giving it all away in the first year, right? Trustee Galindo, were you going to add something to that?
Yeah, they emphasize a lot about community support and not just having just solely responsibility of the school, but that it be a community supported program. Not only that, but a lot of the information about the demographics of the achievement gaps and the benefit of such programs, that removing the hurdle of the demographics that we have at Calistone and John University, the benefit as employment goes and wage, it helps shrinks that gap. I think this is a phenomenal program. It was a breath of fresh air to be around like-minded people with the same goal, because even if you even the playing field, it truly is not even, because we all don't have the same homes. We don't all come from the same places. And this removes the major hurdle in education, college or vocational training. This is a phenomenal program. I hope we could I hope we could give an ear.
Definitely.
I just have a quick question, which is if a student chooses to go into a CTE certification program or anything like that outside of a typical 2 or 4 year college, would the Promise backfill that too?
Well, I'm not the official decider, but that's my vision. That whatever post-secondary choice they make,
Yeah.
we help them do that.
And that was another thing, that we must keep all dreams alive, regardless of how we might feel, but because it's their dreams, and we should support them.
So, go
I
ahead.
just wanted to go back to Indira's question. So one of the ways that we've been thinking about that we could launch our program would be with the savings, the college savings account, because that's a smaller amount. It's a place to start. Oakland has, they call it Cradle to Career, and it's their Brilliant Baby program. So every baby born into a certain economic demographic in Oakland is given a college savings account. And we're on a much smaller scale here, so that, I think, biting off those pieces that we know we can manage this for a sustained period is going to be the approach.
And if I might add one thing, one of the complaints Chevron had with the Richmond city is they said, we would love to hire your students, your graduates, but they're not smart. We need engineers. And that was a hard pill for them to swallow, they admitted. And so this was a way for them to utilize that money and get these kids the education they need to apply for them jobs in their hometown. And I think this will help our kids apply for some of the jobs here in this great industry we're surrounded by.
So what's the next step?
Well, I think Jenna and Maria DiGiulio and I are going to meet on Thursday and explore the possibilities of what we could do with an ASB account. And then I think the next steps will come out of that, because
Okay.
if we need to partner with another nonprofit or pursue creating a nonprofit. I talked to Oakland on the phone today, and their promise is actually, they're not codified in any particular way. They're running their funds through an education foundation. And so we can start without being a nonprofit, but if we don't have a place to put the money, it makes those next steps uncertain.
Well, there's various different, things that we do have, vehicles, LLCs and all different type of entities that we can have. So we have the Calistoga Education Foundation. We have
Right.
other, you got the Napa Community. There's a bunch of different things. I'm not privy to what would be the best,
We have
streamlined use.
spoken with the Napa Valley Community Foundation, who referred us over to some awesome folks to talk to.
Oh, good.
And we have reached out to the Education Foundation. I was scheduled to present, the Calistoga Education, I was scheduled to present during the fires. So we need to follow up and meet with them again. Initially, they did inform us that their bylaws do not allow for scholarship funds. So it will depend on whether or not that's something they're interested in amending.
Sure. Any other questions, comments? It's exciting.
It is exciting. Thank you for the time to present to you. I know we've been talking about it for a while. We are moving forward.
Good.
It's baby steps. And thank you for your support. The conference was
It could lead to great
phenomenal.
things.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Gentlemen in the suits. 13.3, bond refunding analysis presentation. I guess it's Jason?
Yes, hi, Steve.
Thanks for being patient.
Oh, not a problem. I really don't disagree with, I find hard copies also.
And we see Bruce. Welcome, Bruce.
Back.
Is your backup guy? Okay. Moral support, Bruce?
Good evening, my name is Jason List. I'm with the company Iceland Advisors. The presentation is broken down into two parts. The first part, a little background on our firm, which I'll go through rather quickly, and I'll slow down to talk more specifically about the item at hand, which is a bond refunding. So, our firm, we've been the #1 firm, financial advisory firm in California since 2011, based on number of financings. And I think what that means for you as a school board, as a school district, is that we hope it gives you some comfortability in knowing that we know what we're doing to benefit your taxpayers. So we have been the #1 firm for the past 5 years under that metric. And if you look at the bottom section of this page, these are all the school districts in the county that we've worked with. And I would say the great majority of these school districts, we've done this very same type of financing for bond refunding. So if you know these folks at these other districts, you can ask them how their experience with this type of process. More stats, and again, I'll go very quickly over this. In 2014, our school district, our firm passed over 40 bond measures for schools throughout the state, which was a record for any individual firm at the time in the election cycle year. We followed that up in 2016 with 73 successful bond measures, which is the current record. A lot of bonds were passed in 2016. A lot in this county, or in 2014-2016 cycles. And again, this is not to blind you with numbers and names, but more just to give you some comfortability with who we are and what we do. Now I'll slow down by a lot. And the way I present this information, I know that this is new or newer information to many of you, so if you have any questions along the way, just stop and let me know. We will wait until the end.
Okay.
So the main topic of tonight for my presentation is how to save taxpayers money. The way that we do that, we took a look at your bonds you sold in 2011, the election 2010, series 2011A. These bonds carry much higher interest rates than rates today. It's much like, the process is much like a home refinance, where in 2008 you might have been borrowing at 6%, today you borrow 4%, lower interest rate, less savings. The third bullet point down, I think, is a good metric and a good telltale sign for why I'm here tonight. The Government Finance Officers Association, or GFOA, they have a threshold. Anything over 3% is considered a good refunding. That's on a percentage value of the total amount of bonds you're refunding. We're at 21.3%, so 7 times over that organization's recommended savings threshold. All these numbers that we'll talk about tonight, they are net of all professional expenses, and that's expenses for our firm, for Stiefel Nicholas, Mr. Stern's firm, your bond counsel firm, and some other miscellaneous expenses that are involved in this process. This is a net number of direct savings to the taxpayers. And as of today, the last 48 hours anyway, potential savings of over $2.2 million. And this does not, unlike a bond or unlike a home refinance where you borrow for 30 years, 5 years goes by, you can refinance again for another 30 years. School bonds do not work that way. You can't kick the can down the road, so to speak. So the final term of the bond will stay exactly the same as when you originally sold the bonds back in 2011. This is an index that we use in our industry. It's called the Bond Buyer 20 Index, and it's a composite of AA-rated districts throughout the country. And this is not, the idea of this graph is not to give you the specific rate or rates are today, to express the very low interest rate environment that we're in. This is back from 2001, but if you, what's interesting to me anyways, if you stretch back when this graph started, back in 1965, where we're at today is among the lowest of all time. So rates have crept up over the last several months, but from a historical perspective, interest rates are very, very low. And certainly much lower as you can see kind of the spike in 2011 when we sold the original bonds. The lowest of this index that we experienced was last summer. Again, it would have been great for everybody to get sell debt at that time. Everybody had perfect timing. But again, rates are extremely low, thus the high savings numbers that we're talking about tonight. Page 9, this is just a good representation of where your rates currently are, which is the yellow line. So if you never refinanced your debt at all, these would be the interest rates that you pay over the remaining life of the bonds. So that range between 4.62% and 6.9%, very high rates compared to today. Right now, we're at for those same bonds, we're at 1.43%, 3.28%. So that spread, the gap between the yellow and the red, is what's creating savings. From a number standpoint, what that means on an annual basis is a minimal amount 2022 through 24, but about $125,000 on average through the remaining life of the bonds out to 2041. So again, the net savings of $2.263 million. Again, the second will click down on a percentage basis, 21.3. We do a lot of these refundings. That percentage oftentimes is not in the 20s. So again, just another way to say it's a very opportune time to be in this particular market to refinance your bonds. With the timeline, my colleague met with the school district to discuss this idea of the school district back in November. Legal documents, there's a lot of various legal documents that are centered around the issue, including what's called a preliminary official statement, or POS for short, which is essentially like a stock prospectus, but instead of a prospectus for a company, this document you use to market your school district's bonds. So that's one of the major documents in the draft legal documents. Every time a school district sells bonds, third box down, we have to have a conference call or meeting with one of the rating agencies. Now your district is rated AA2, which is a very, very strong rating. So we had to go through that process again, and we expect that rating back if the board approves the resolutions tonight. We expect that rating back tomorrow, if not tomorrow, sometime very, very soon. And we expect you to remain at very strong credit rating based on a lot of factors, namely the resilience of your tax base and the strength that we've seen over the last 10 years, the growth that you've had. So once we get that rating back, we can fix that rating to that preliminary official statement document to make it complete. Bruce's company will deliver that to bond investors throughout the state, throughout the country, to start gauging interest of those who want to buy your bonds. Once they do this in that pre-marketing, we're scheduled to sell bonds December 13th. His firm worked diligently to explain more of what they do, if you like. Sell bonds on the 13th, so once those bonds are priced or sold, interest rates are locked in at that point, savings are locked in at that point. There's just a couple-week process after that to dot all the financial I's, cross all the financial T's, and do the same from the legal side. So a pretty swift process. Part of this timeline is a little more expedient than usual. Part of the reason for this is under the tax proposal, whether you like it or don't like it, one of the effects of that tax proposal is that it eliminates certain types of bond refundings, and the type of bond refunding you're contemplating on advance refunding eliminates that opportunity starting January 1st, 2018. So there is some sense of urgency of this transaction, very specifically because of that tax proposal, that tax bill. That is it, unless there's any questions.
So it's safe to say, kind of the political climate, we don't know we don't have a crystal ball whether that's going to be part of that package or not, that tax cut. But the rates are historically low right now. We can save our tax base $2.2 million. That's a lot of money.
Yeah,
I pay taxes.
It's a lot of money, and from the political standpoint, yeah, we don't have a crystal ball, but from both the congressional side and the Senate side, that particular provision was in both bills.
Yeah.
So we in our industry, we're pretty confident that that's going to be the final resolution of that bill.
So expending, time is of the essence.
Time is of the essence, but more to your point, saving $2.2 million on that size of bonds is very significant.
Yeah. Okay. Bruce, anything to add?
Jason did an excellent job of
Yes, he did.
summarizing it, so I won't belabor the subject except to mention two things. One, the only beneficiary of financing that we decided to go forward with the resolution that is before you later in this agenda, the only beneficiary is the taxpayer of the school district. The school district itself doesn't get any spendable money out of this transaction. The only purpose of the financing is to refinance those bonds the district originally sold in May of 2011. The second point I'll make is that most of the bonds that are being refinanced are capital appreciation bonds, and they're going to be converted as part of this refinancing into current interest bonds. So the district will have many fewer capital appreciation bonds among its outstanding bonds, and many more current interest bonds. So to the extent that the issue of selling capital appreciation bonds has come up in the past, the district will have fewer of them as a consequence of this than they have.
So that's kind of improving the portfolio, per se?
That's correct.
Okay. Any questions? Well done. All right. All right, thank you. Now for saving money. 13.4. CES Principals Report.
So the focus of my report tonight is going to be on the Yosemite trip. And unfortunately, we're not going to have sound, but we have lots of images of what our students experienced. So I was asked to speak on the process. And I think we do have Autumn Grove here tonight, who is one of our 6th grade teachers, who has been organizing this trip for, I think we're in like double digits now. And so,
she went.
And I think I was gonna say, I think she went in 6th grade too. And that was one thing I was gonna point out with this trip is that many of our students now have parents or relatives who say, I remember when I got to go on this trip. So basically, we start working towards Yosemite really at this, after January, we start looking at a date to have it. In the first week of school, Mr. Valenzuela and I push into classes to welcome our 6th graders. We have a parent meeting at back to school night, and we go over the packing list. And really what the students do in Yosemite is it's for team building. It's also for physical activity. They're hiking between 5 and 11 miles a day. They also learn to be environmental stewards. So you can see in this photo, they are taking samples from the river. In this photo, they are taking seeds and replanting them. Then they also learn history of Yosemite National Park, and there's quite a few historical buildings in there. And also, you can see mostly it's about the team building for these kids, and that's probably what they remember the most. This young man did survive a wasp attack with, by the way, without a tear. So you can also see too, the sponsor of this trip that we work with is Nature Bridge. They provide us with guides, and then our parent chaperones, teachers, and administration are split into different groups, and they're led by the docent from Nature Bridge. Some of the activities that they do, the kids would say, we hiked, and we'd say, what else did you do? And they say, we hiked. But some of the activities they do, this is Vernal, I believe this is the top of Vernal Falls. That's one of the trips. There's also their favorite thing for most kids is spider caves. And I think a few of those pictures came up earlier. It's when the kids are crawling through the rocks. And part of that time they are crawling in complete darkness. They also will do a day where they're doing the art of Yosemite, so they do watercolor. And then they also will go visit the historical museum area of Yosemite. And then during the day, they do have lunch provided on the road in the morning, and for dinner they go to the cafeteria, which is now in Half Dome Village. I have to remember the new name there. And then at night, and we don't have a lot of night pictures, but at night they go and they hike and they have an evening program. And so you'll also see in here, well, they're taking a rest, but you'll also see students with guidebooks, so they become field guides, so they're asked to look at what kind of animals are they seeing. Sometimes they are looking at things that animals left behind after eating and deciding what kind of animal that was. And then they're also getting a presentation from the docent from the program. So you can see the morning and evening fare here. And we have one evening shot here. And this is again part of the environmental stewardship program where the students are replanting seeds because the impact of roads being constructed made it so that the meadows can no longer continue to flourish. And so the students have to hand bring the seeds over because it used to be a function of the wind. And so these areas have gotten isolated and unable to grow the meadow plants that they need. You can see that's an example of a field journal and someone eating. And again, for many of our students, even though this is a 5-day trip, the year previous they do a 2-day trip in Marin Headlands to start preparing. But for a lot of our students, they have never been camping. They've never had the opportunity to use a sleeping bag, to be away from home, to be responsible for their things. And so there is a lot of support that goes for these students to be successful. And it does start with, you can see the art piece here. It does start with supporting them in getting their things ready and making sure that if a student does need things like a coat or an extra sleeping bag, we do outreach and make sure that they have them. And in fact, we have community who comes in and says, oh, it's Yosemite time, I got a few sleeping bags if you need them. Also, Nature Bridge, a part of this program is that 2 groups do a backpacking trip where they hike up to, I think it's Merced Grove, and Nature Bridge does provide them with the backpacks and the equipment so that they can do that. And so we had, I believe, 73 students participate. We had 6 chaperones, and then we all, 7, sorry. And then we also had some teachers come along as well to help out with the trip. So we had Mrs. Grove, Mrs. Ferrando, Mr. May, Mrs. Palma, Mr. Smith, myself, and Mr. Valenzuela. So it really is an all hands on board kind of experience. Here's Spider Cave. And generally at the end when students do their reflection, it is what was I the most scared of? Spider Cave. What did I like the most? Spider Cave. So it is, I have not done Spider Cave yet. I have a feeling that Autumn is going to be thinking about that next year.
You need to do it.
Yeah, I watched the backpacks.
Oh, you didn't do it either? Oh, you.
But I did hike out to the cabin. I went with Brian and Jack out to the cabin.
Yes. I've done it twice, and I did Sandy Spider Caves, crawling through there. It's a little hard when you're all old and big and stiff.
Well, that's really making me want to do Spider Caves now. So,
You're good.
and so the final part of this trip, we do have bus service, but it is an endeavor and a lot of planning in getting 73 kids off the bus with their equipment. Also, Jen Wadlinger put this video together, and you can see she's getting all of our thank yous up there. But everything is a process, and it does require a lot of planning, a lot of double checking, a lot of helping with rolling of sleeping bags. And really, we could not do this trip without the continued support of the board. Although we do ask for a donation from our students, families, it does not cover the amount that it does cost per student to participate. And in terms of really for timing, just to be aware with this trip was October 2nd until October 6th, which I think is important to know because that Friday that we came back, we then had the fires that weekend. So there was a little bit of a lag time in getting this presentation because of that. But we do really appreciate the partnership and the support that we've gotten from the Board of Education, and I think the students appreciate it as well.
So is Nature Bridges, is that the same as Yosemite Institute, or is it a different program, or is that?
It's a new company. A lot of the instructors moved over to that company when it happened. So it's similar, but it's even more organized, streamlined, safe, making sure they're connected to the NGSS standards that they were talking about earlier in the high school. So quality.
And we get all 73 kids back, right? We did.
So, haven't heard anything for a couple months.
I just have to say something, put my daughter on the spot who just walked in. But she loved it so much, she said, why don't we have something we get to go do in high school? And I thought, who would want to chaperone that?
You're turning away. All right, great, thank you. Enjoyed as always. Always a fun trip. And I actually went with Autumn with my groups too. All right.
And then before, just one thing I do want to announce is that this week we do have our winter concerts. So tomorrow's concert is TK through 3rd grade. And then Thursday's concert is 4th through 6th. Both nights, I believe, we're having choir as well.
Great, thank you, Nicole. All right, moving on. Craig Wyckoff is unfortunately not here, so we have his written report, but we move on to the student rep.
It has been a very busy week after the Thanksgiving break. Before we went on break, the Costello ASB created a Spirit Week to celebrate the upcoming holidays. Students at Costello High School showed their wildcat spirit by dressing up in their holiday gear. On December 1st, the Costello ASB class hosted the first winter form of dance in over 2 years. This year, ASB is focusing on creating more events for our student body to promote school spirit. Also this week, Coastal ASB is excited to host the June Duffy tournament, and we are looking forward to hosting the concession stand. We're hoping to raise some funds for our upcoming school events. We hope to see you there and support our Wildcats.
Thank you. One quick question before, I understand you have some homework to do, so we'll let you go after this. But how was the dance the other night?
It was good.
Was it well attended?
Yeah.
Any questions before we let her get back to the real work? Yeah? All right, yeah, appreciate it. Thank you for your help. Superintendent's report.
I'll keep my report fairly short. I was able to attend the WASP focus group presentations last week at the junior senior high school, and I was very impressed with the amount of dedication, the study and reflection that the staff put into preparing their presentations. Carla is obviously doing an outstanding job as a WASP coordinator, and I have no doubt the process is going to greatly benefit our students. The riverbank work has been completed, and the permanent fence that has replaced the original one has been started. Chris offered, if you would like, he could give you a tour of the project. The plants are growing rapidly, he said, and it's fascinating to look at. So if you get a chance, if you give him a call, you should take it in.
Yeah, we'll do that. Great. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, actually, I popped over there on the break just to, he can't get in to look. I mean, we need your help. Yeah.
I'll help you out.
Fences are working.
Yeah, the fences are working. I didn't want to climb.
And Paula is going to explain when we get to item 15.8 about the next steps that we're taking to improve our district's communication, which is going to be on our new website. And then I want to thank the trustees who obviously took time away from your families and your jobs to attend the CSBA conference this week. I just appreciate your continued work together and that you are now learning together as well. So thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It was fun. Learned a lot. All right. Okay, moving on. Actually, we have 13.8, and that's an agenda item on the agenda amended. We received a letter from Frida Turner. All right, moving on. Consent calendar requires a roll call vote. Actions proposed for the consent agenda are deemed routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless any member of the board, audience, or staff request specific items to be removed from the consent agenda for a separate action. Okay, so, and this is a roll call, and I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Mark did, okay.
I'll second.
Matt? All in favor? Aye. Everybody's here. This is a roll call. Clerk Belkacem? Trustee Lopez? Trustee Reed? Trustee Melinda?
Aye.
And Student Rep Tokoff? And President Maxfield? Aye. All right, moving on to action items. Protocol for action items includes a staff presentation, questions from the board, public input, deliberation by the board, and voting by the board. During public input, there will be a 3-minute time limit per person. Moving on, 15.1, ISM Advisors Consulting Service Agreement. The district and the advisor, ISM Advisors, wish to enter an agreement in which we'll provide consulting services. And this is Jenna.
So this is the agreement with ISM Advisors to provide financial advisory services and then also the services to do the bond refunding that you heard about. So it's requested that you approve the services agreement, please.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. 15.2, agreement with ORIC. Jenna again?
Yes. So this is the agreement with bond counsel. ORIC has been bond counsel in the district from the very beginning of the passage of this bond measure. So it's just requested that you also approve this agreement.
Recommendation is to request to approve. Julie? Mark? All in favor? Aye. 15.3, underwriter engagement relating to potential municipal securities transaction.
Yes, this is the last one of the group. This is for Stifel to provide underwriting services for bond refund.
Which is part of the gig, right?
Yes.
Okay. Recommendation to approve the engagements presented? Mark? Julie? All in favor? Aye. Moving on to 15.4, Resolution 17-1806, General Obligation Refunding Bonds. So this is a resolution, and Jenna again? Or is it?
Jonas, okay. Yeah, so as you saw the presentation, it's requested that you approve the resolution for the bond refunding.
Julie? And Garrett? All in favor? Aye. Isn't that? All right. Well, Jenna, you're just on a roll tonight. 15.5, Bullet School Solutions Agreement.
So this Follett actually provides our library resource manager as well as an asset manager. And
thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Per the Ed Code, of course, we have to maintain inventory. And really, every 2 or 3 years, districts should have an inventory audit. Our inventory was maintained historically on a spreadsheet. And just with our technology alone, I'm sure you can imagine it's not feasible to maintain. So they would send out a group of 16 to 20 people, complete a district-wide inventory, put it in the software over a period of the first week of Christmas break. And that includes textbook inventory, which would be very helpful, I think. And then at the district side, we are working on refining a process internally so that we can maintain this inventory going forward. And this is a prime example of a good use of one-time funds.
So is this an inventory of everything?
Yes, so anything
I mean,
more...
like the copy machine in the
Everything.
Everything.
Yeah, anything over $500 is supposed to have an asset tag. If you can imagine, that's a lot of stuff.
So, and that, I mean, so 500, a book, one book is not $500.
No.
A group of books is.
Yeah, and with the textbooks, especially the high school was very interested in doing that to mitigate loss, better ways of checking out books to students and stuff like that.
Okay, perfect.
There's usually an audit, but in terms of,
All right. Looking for a second? Indira. All in favor? Aye. Okay, Jenna again, first interim financial report. She's taking off, it's nothing on the content.
I just want to make sure this works. So I'll try to make this quick. I know you've heard a lot of information tonight. But I wanted to touch on a few key topics in our interim report. Of course, always our revenues and property taxes, multi-year projections, and then our ending fund balance and reserves. And so as you know, the interim report at this point is based on information from July 1 to October 31st. So first, just to point out two one-time revenue sources. The governor, I think we had talked about this, initially proposed one-time funding that would be allocated in the 18-19 school year, and he actually changed his mind because I think districts were surprised and didn't know what to do with that, to this year. So we should get about $121,000 this year in a one-time funding, and usually the best practice is to find one-time costs to associate that with, because it's not going to be ongoing.
So it's not not going to be specific, it just goes to the general fund?
Yeah, yeah, so usually the practice would be like the second one I'm going to talk about, to find something that's a one-time expenditure that you can use that on, because ongoing it's not going to be there anymore.
Gotcha.
We also, I'm sure you remember, that last year we got hit with that lovely tax waiver for the hospitals, which included Kaiser, which was a pretty good impact.
Was it
over
$300,000?
Yeah, it was about 350,000 tax revenue net. So Kaiser, in good faith, issued one-time grants to the school districts in the county. So they gave this district $162,000, which we've been spending on technology replacements and essentially set aside for a lot of technology, what needs to be upgraded, replaced, Chromebooks, stuff like that. And of course, the burning question is then what is the impact of the fires on tax
No pun intended,
revenues?
no pun intended.
Yes, exactly. So the information we have at this point is that 32 parcels were damaged in the fire in our district boundaries. The impact of this on our aggregate assessed valuation is about $47 million, which is 1.68% of our total assessed valuation, which is $2.8 billion. So at this point, that's on the smaller side, fortunate for us. We could see the impact, if there is any, and if it is minimal, anytime from now to the next 3 years, is what the county said. So our P1 taxes from Napa County came in at an increase of 9.09%.
A little bit more than we were forecasting.
Yes, the last few years have been pretty high. Unlike usual at this point, because counties had to have their P1 taxes in to the state, because of the fires, Sonoma County requested a waiver and also informed us that we may not have accurate tax information for several months. So it's currently just a budgeted amount. It's about 3.2%. And if you look here, I've shown you this before, but I just want to give you an idea. So Sonoma County is a very small percentage, about 10 to 11% of our tax revenue. So you see that last year, that 11.5% increase, that equates to about $142,000. So in the big picture, compared to our $13.5 million tax revenue, it's smaller. So the only thing I can say about the Sonoma County piece is that it's very volatile, but it's also a small component of our tax revenue and our tax base.
That's where more of the percentage of those were.
Yes, yes, majority. So in the multi-year projections, just to point out a couple of things, I included the impact of the negotiated 2% increase that we talked about last meeting with CSEA management, and then any step adjustments for staff that we currently have. And then it was interesting, if you look at the benefits, over the next 3 years, just projection-wise, but as we talked about a lot, the pension increases, stuff like that, we don't have control over these factors, and as you can see, the percentage increases quite a bit over the next couple of years, from any one year to another. So, and then also in our services and other operating expenditures, I always try to anticipate the best I can any potential special replacements. So I increased a little bit just in case. As you know, one placement could range $100,000 to $200,000. Yeah. And then for our ending fund balance, this is just projected. Of course, if anything changes, this will fluctuate. But as you can see, fortunately, we're building back up to our district reserve standard, which is 20%. Even though our ending fund balance isn't exactly the cash that we have in the bank, we rely on that to spend money all the way through November. We get our first little piece of taxes in November, so that means we can meet all of our financial obligations, July, August, September, October, pretty much November, with positive cash. So if you look at cash flow, I think it was on page 58, you'll see that around November and October of next year, which it's about that time, we are projected to possibly go negative cash. And when that happens, if you don't have other funds to borrow against, you have to issue a tax revenue anticipation notice, which is essentially debt and has interest and stuff like that. But good news is that we're gradually getting back up to our reserve level. Our board policy does say that we really should be making an increase of, trying to make an increase of 5% a year towards our reserves until we reach that amount. And then lastly, if there's any questions.
I like that reserve projection as opposed to our last person.
Yes,
Yeah.
much better.
Much better.
Yes,
Much better.
I do too.
Yeah, much better. Great. Questions? The recommendation is to approve the financial report. Mark and Julie, all in favor? Aye. 15.7, Jenna, yeah, boy. Resolution 1807, the annual accounting of developments.
So every year we bring this, we're required to bring just an accounting of our Fund 25, which is our developer fee fund. They're accounted for separately. So we have to show you what our beginning fund balance is, any revenues that we have received to date, expenditures that we've actually incurred, and then we always include any planned or budgeted expenditures. And this fund has been used for our COP payments usually. And then you can see the ending fund balance, which is about, projected is about 200,000. So this has to come to the board 180 days every year before the end of the fiscal year. So any questions?
Recommendation to approve that would, Julie? Matt? All in favor? Aye. 15.8, and Jenna's off the hook. Paula, this is a school messenger presence agreement.
So I've been doing a lot of research on a new website host since ours could use some work, as Aaron's heard. And I narrowed it down to two top companies, School Messenger Presence being the one that we are more strongly leaning with now. I'm going to do a couple more cold calls just to get some more feedback on the districts that are currently using these hosts in the forms of customer support, ease of use. Of course, the ADA compliance is huge. That's becoming a requirement as of January 1. So the School Messenger Presence Agreement is in the packet. You can look through it. You can go on their website, take a peek. But I think that they look really good, and I'm really excited to begin the process. It should be roughly 6 to 8 weeks from getting all of our current data downloaded from our current website, the stuff that we want to bring over at least, and then uploading it into the new the format and layout, the mappings, what they say. So I'm really excited about moving forward with it.
So will I be able to find things when I need to?
You will definitely be able to find things.
What's that, the mobile app?
Yes, the mobile app will be very good.
Okay.
Any questions?
No, nicely done. The recommendation is to approve this agreement as presented. Mark? Need a second? Julie? All in favor? Aye. 15.9, adapted physical education waiver.
We're very fortunate that teacher Karen Yoder is pursuing her adapted PE credential. It's rare for a district to have a teacher on site that actually has this credential. So my recommendation is that you approve the waiver. She's hoping to be fully credentialed within the next month or so. It involves a lot of work.
Indira? Julie, all in favor? Aye. Board calendar, next meeting is Monday, January 8th, regular board meeting. God, New Year, wow. February 5th, and then March 5th. Upcoming events, as Nicole mentioned, the K through 3 winter concert on Tuesday the 5th, and on Thursday the 7th is the 4 through 6 at the CES Multipurpose Room. December 13th, Wednesday, is the winter concert here at 7 p.m. And winter break is 18th through the 5th. Tentative future agenda items, school accountability report cards, financial audit report, and there's no need to reconvene to closed session. So I am looking for the favorite topic of the night. All in favor? Aye. Thank you for coming.